I'm a dork that likes movies, and today we're going to talk about For Love or Money from 1993. For Love or Money is a little movie that I love, but Michael J. Fox probably does not, because it's one of a handful of films in the early 90s that made him unbankable as a leading man. Coming off his successful run on TV as Alex P. Keaton in Family Ties, and straight off the Back to the Future franchise, Fox pretty much had a golden ticket and lots of projects to choose from in the early 90s, and to be honest, I liked most of them. I'd grown up with Alex P. Keaton and Marty McFly, and it's a fact that Fox is charming and competent as an actor. But there was a problem. And some of you aren't going to like this, but there are 3 reasons I think the box office rejected Fox as a leading man. 3 inches to be exact. That's the difference between the 5'4" Michael J. Fox and the 5'7" Tom Cruise. I never really thought about his stature being a problem until I rewatched For Love or Money for this video, and I noticed that there were tons of different ways they were trying to shoot him to de-emphasize his height. Luckily at 5'3", Gabrielle Anwar was a good choice of co-star, but the fact is, this is a Cary Grant or Jimmy Stewart kind of romantic comedy. Grant was 6'1", and Stewart was 6'3", and as big as Fox's personality is, it's just hard to dominate a scene when everything about your physicality says, I'm a supporting actor. Fox is a great supporting actor, in fact, and he would pivot his career successfully shortly after this film, back to the small screen and supporting movie roles, many times to great critical acclaim. This was Barry Sonnenfeld's second time directing after the successful Addams Family film, and it was back in an age where TV to film and nostalgia bait was just starting to get going strong. I mentioned Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart, and that's who I think about when I see this movie. It's a classic love triangle formula film, and it would play well in just about any period in New York, even though it was set in the present of the early 90s. It could have just as easily been 50s New York, and it wouldn't have even needed much of a rewrite. Even when it came out, this movie had a real nostalgic feel. Set in the classic Essex Hotel near Central Park in New York, where Fox's character, Doug, is the concierge. It's a beautiful New York film with lots of interesting shots of the city, and as someone who's never visited the Big Apple, the imagery in films like this and all the pretty parts are what make you want to visit. It's easy to suspend disbelief and enjoy the movie just from an attractiveness standpoint. In that sense, it reminds me of another film from this era that did the same thing, Pretty Woman. Of course, that was LA, but they don't really make movies like this anymore that look like this, and that's too bad. Doug was good at his job, making the guests at the hotel feel comfortable, and he had all the street smarts to navigate the chaos of the city and maximize his tips, which he's been saving for years trying to have a hotel of his own. An almost impossible dream, but one he just might realize thanks to a land option on a little property on Roosevelt Island. He's running out of time though, which brings us to his last hope, Christian Hanover. The slimy rich guy that I can only imagine was based loosely on someone like Donald Trump at the time. The movie does a good job of making us hate this guy, but personally I've always really hated him, and I never could figure out exactly why. That is until I started writing this review and looked up his bio. He was a Nazi in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
As far as I know, that's the only other thing I've ever watched him in, and that might be why I hate his guts. A friend hooks Doug up with a meeting with Hanover after Doug arranges a hookup for the friend at the hotel. When Hanover, who is anything but Christian in his behavior, comes to the hotel for his own hookup with his mistress, Doug discovers that the lady in red just happens to be another friend of his, Andy. Thus begins the love triangle. Christian objectifies and treats Andy horribly, as most rich, married, middle-aged men with mistresses do. But Andy is seduced by the high-fashion, big-money lifestyle. She too has aspirations beyond the fragrance counter that she works at, wanting to be a jazz singer. Now that the plot is set, Doug and Andy have to make a choice over this man who holds the money they need and the love that's budding between them through a wacky set of circumstances that ensues. Now, most of this wackiness is confined to the pitch-perfect supporting cast that our hero and heroine are surrounded by. Great character actors like Fivish Finkel, who is hilarious as the geriatric bellhop, bring a warmth to the film that leads to more grins than belly laughs, but conveys a sense of charm that just makes you feel good. Michael Tucker from LA Law fame deserves a special nod as being a very believable Mr. Wegman, a visitor to the hotel, just a rube in town to see New York, but one that Doug takes a special interest in to help with his marriage problems, just out of the goodness of his heart. The plot actually centers around this supporting role, and the final outcome and romance that follow could not happen without him, and he just kind of works here as the likable everyman. 1993 was peak Gabrielle Anwar. She was just coming off the success of Scent of a Woman with Pacino, and she would also appear that year in the big-budget Disney offering, The Three Musketeers. She was 23 years old and one of the most beautiful women in the world, and she had great chemistry with Fox. But I can't help but feel like For Love or Money might have hurt her career as well. On a budget of $30 million, which seems really modest by today's standards, the movie would only go on to make $11 million at the box office. Anwar would spend most of the rest of the 90s in low-budget trash, only to resurface in what would be one of my favorite roles of hers as Fiona Glenann on the TV show Burn Notice, which I've also done a video on for the channel if you want to check that out. All in all, For Love or Money is a sweet little movie that's not a bad way to spend 90 minutes. While it was a failure at the time, I always liked it, and in rewatching it, I found that it's held up pretty good. If you want to watch, you're going to need a hard copy though, because according to Just Watch, it's not streaming anywhere. Thanks for watching this video. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll work on some more.